Hi everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer, and it's my pleasure to welcome once again Will Merrifield. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, always a pleasure having you here, Will. And of course, for viewers who don't know, please tell them about yourself and why you're a candidate this year.
Sure. My name is Will Merrifield. I'm running for one of the open DC City Council at-large seats. I've been a housing attorney for the last 8 years at the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, representing tenants across the District of Columbia. I'm running for office because in my work, I've seen our local leaders working hand in glove with developers, giving them hundreds of millions of dollars worth of public money, public land in order to displace existing communities and drive up housing costs. So I'm running a campaign in direct opposition to that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, what has changed since the last time we've interviewed you, and what have you learned thus far with the campaign process?
Those are great questions. I think the main thing that's changed is we've been able to staff up. So I have a campaign manager, a field organizer, and a finance director. We are not taking corporate money. We're not taking developer money. So we're a grassroots finance campaign. And we've been able to raise a significant amount of money from at the grassroots level. So I'm very proud of that. And we're running, allows us to run a serious campaign, and we're running to win in November. I think the thing that I've learned through this process, I'm making about 200 calls a day to DC residents and talking to people. And I think that it's really, really important to listen to voters as you're speaking with people, but also to be very honest with people about where you stand on things. I think what voters don't like is a candidate that agrees with everything they say and doesn't have a position on things. So then lastly, I think that it's really, really important that, and I'm proud of our campaign because we're not just offering a critique of the system. So we are critiquing the lack of affordable housing. We're critiquing the lack of living wage jobs. We're critiquing why we don't have a public education system that operates equitably in DC in order to give every child a quality education. But we're not just offering a critique, we're offering a solution. We're offering an alternative for people to get behind and organize around. So I think that's important, not just to be a critic, but offer a solution.
Definitely, definitely. I agree with that. Now tell me, the last time we spoke was months ago. So it's been a very interesting, exciting, hectic summer.
Yeah.
So tell me how, from the pandemic to the demonstrations to the protests, all of that. Tell me how that has impacted you personally as well as your priorities for your campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we were always, our campaign was always laser focused on using this $16 billion local budget that the DC government has in order to meet the needs of the collective, to meet the needs of the people, the working class residents of Washington, DC, who are, make up the guts of this city and perform the tasks that are the things that make the city run. So we've always been focused on housing, jobs, education, police reform, and reorganizing money away from militarized policing into housing, education, and living wage jobs. But what's been instructive to me about the pandemic, the unrest around policing has been the fact that it is exposed and put it shed light on these issues that were going on before the pandemic. So we've had, policing issues, obviously, in the district itself for a very long time. I represent tenants across Washington, D.C., but I've seen the way tenants and communities are policed in low-income communities as opposed to, wealthy communities. And it's a completely different form of policing. And I've seen developers work hand in glove, not just with MPD, but with private security forces that they hire in order to clear properties out ahead of redevelopment. I don't think that that's, that a lot of people in DC west of the river understand that a lot of communities are policed by private police forces that work directly for developers. So I think that this has shed light on those issues. It shed light on the fact that our current housing policy is completely irrational. To give our taxpayer dollars and our public land to developers to build luxury units that are displacing people made no sense before the pandemic. But now you see the folly of those policies because people have not been able to go to work, and now we're on the edge of this eviction crisis. So I think that, you know, the pandemic has shown light on how absurd our housing policy was before the pandemic and continues to be, and I'm running to change that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, tell me what your opinion is on ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting, especially considering the fact that, you know, in what for the at-large council race right now, there's about 24 people running.
Sure.
So that's a lot of people. To give me your opinion on these models as opposed to the one that we're using right now.
Yeah, I think they're superior models. I mean, I support a ranked choice voting model. I think it gives people more of an opportunity to have their voice heard, and more of an opportunity to just, you know, return democracy back to the people, back to the demos, by having, you know, them, having voters, you know, have more control over the process, as opposed to, you know, what a lot of times is, you know, two corporate candidates are sort of your only choice. So I like the idea of ranked choice voting and support that.
Definitely, definitely. And speaking of the fact that 24 people are running for at large, everyone gets 2 votes. Who is your second vote going for? Which of your colleagues that you are running against, which one will get your second vote?
You know, that is a great question. I am still in the process, like a lot of DC voters, of making my choice on that. I want to be very thoughtful and very intentional about who I vote for, just as, you know, I think all DC voters want to be thoughtful and intentional about who they vote for in this election. So I know where one of my votes is going, and the other one's still up for grabs. They got to earn it.
Of course. Now, what would you like to tell voters about the election process this year, and you know how important this election is this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would just encourage people to get out and vote. You know, I think it's very important at the federal level that Donald Trump is defeated, obviously. At the local level, you know, change, I think, really happens at the local level. And, you know, the ability to have council members that, you know, are going to fight for your interests. And when I say your interests, I mean, you know, working class Washingtonians. I will fight for their interests. I've been picking fights against developers for the last 8 years at the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless. I've been successful in pushing out slumlords from Washington, D.C. You know, I represented the tenant association that those tenants stood up against Sanford Capital and eventually blew the lid off of what Sanford Capital was doing, taking government funding in order to warehouse people in unhealthy, unsafe conditions. That led to Sanford Capital no longer being able to do business in the district. So I'm a council member that will look out for people's interests, that doesn't take corporate money, that doesn't take developer money, and is focused, laser focused on living wage jobs, a strong neighborhood public school system. Should, you know, you choose to send your kid to your neighborhood public school, we want to make sure it's world class and creating truly affordable housing.
Of course. Now, please share with our viewers how they can support your campaign and how they can learn more about you.
Thank you. And I always get this messed up, so I'm going to look down at shows my age, you know, with the social media stuff. So Twitter, it's Will M4DC. That's Will M, the number 4DC. Website is willfordc.com. So will4dc.com. And Facebook, again, at Will M4DC.
Of course, wonderful. And you know, today we announced here at Team Racing that in partnership with the Washington Blade, we'll be presenting the DC Council at Large 2020 Candidate Forum. We can't wait to have you be a part of this, and that will be moderated by Racine and myself. So I hope our viewers will come out in September to watch that, and you guys will get to see Will as well as all the other 24 at-large candidates this year. Thank you so much, Will, for joining me today. It's always been a pleasure.
Thank you, and I really look forward to the candidate forum.
Of course, thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone. Bye, Will.